Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Linnane and thank you for listening to my community in words and pictures. This project came for me at an interesting time. I've actually recently made a pretty major move from San Jose, California, Northern California, to the big island of Hawaii in a relatively small community, actually in the rainforest, kind of in pursuit of my own good community. So to start off, I'm actually going to start off with the maps portion of this assignment. For those of you who are like me, I am a visual person, so it's sometimes helpful to be able to see what it looks like before we get into all of the rest. So this is what the Hawaiian Islands look like. So you can see there's several islands. I live on the big island all the way to the right, bottom corner on the right side of the island. This map kind of demonstrates some of the different regions of Hawaii. The different regions all have different agriculture that they can grow uniquely, and can produce a lot of different variants between those different regions. So we're going to move on to demographic descriptions. This was kind of exciting for me to learn a lot more about the different demographics on the island and get to know it a little bit better, and know my own community a little bit better. So to start off with, the population here is 200,983 people on the big island. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about Hawaii as a whole, but really focus on the geographic region of the big island when we're going through a lot of these demographic breakdowns. So races, we have 34% white, 21% Asian, 13% Hispanic or Latino, and 0.8% Black. So although there is definitely a heavy presence of Native Hawaiian, there's also a lot of people who have transplanted to the islands, primarily from the United States, but from a lot of other places in the mainland, but a lot of other places as well. There's also a lot of military personnel here, like I'll mention later. So pretty diverse and interesting group of people. As far as education goes, as you can see, 92% of the adults on the big island have a high school degree or higher, while only 28% have a bachelor's degree or higher. So the high school graduation rate has drastically increased, whereas the college graduation rate has pretty much stayed the same, which is an interesting nuance that they have here. Poverty, there is a 15% rate of people who are living below the poverty line, 11.8% in the United States as a whole. And as you can see, pretty similar in the mainland and Hawaii in terms of median income, and Hawaii is just below the United States as a whole on unemployment. So although these numbers look relatively similar, I'm going to mention a little bit later on in this project that there is less of a wealth gap here. So even though there's a similar median income, the wealth is more evenly distributed, and the 1% have less of the total income of that population. So that makes a huge difference in terms of how that wealth is actually spread out on the island. Crime, 38th most dangerous state, as far as violent crime goes, and as you can see, that includes murder, rape, aggravated assault, and robbery. So, you know, that rating is not horrible. It's also not the highest rating either. However, I thought what was really interesting about Hawaii is that they actually are rated first in a U.S. News rating article in terms of crime corrections. And so the metrics that they use in that study is incarceration rate, juvenile incarceration, and racial equality in jailing. So many of you are familiar with the problems that the United States has with mass incarceration, racial profiling, a lot of really gnarly things in terms of our jail system. Really need a lot of criminal justice reform in this country. and Hawaii kind of demonstrates more equality in terms of crime corrections. So that's really exciting to see. Hawaii is no stranger to natural disasters, as you can see. Lava flow, hurricanes, tsunamis, flooding, earthquakes, and storms. This is a picture of what lava flow looks like. I live just down the street actually from a volcano that was pretty detrimental to the community about a year ago. The lava flow actually really ran a lot of people out of their homes. Tourists could not come and see the active volcano at that point, and so that really damaged a lot of businesses that thrive around that in the community. So a lot of hardships revolving around natural disasters, and really important for the government to be aware of that. That's a picture of where the lava flow typically flows to on the island, based on where the volcano is. So we're going to move on to institutions in Hawaii, on the Big Island of Hawaii. So these are some of the industries in Hawaii: tourism, agriculture, livestock, defense, and sugar. Hawaii has an interesting history. I encourage you to read up on it and how they became a state, but without totally going into that, part of that history involves the history of raw sugar being grown in Hawaii. So even though the last plantation closed in, let me make sure I'm getting this right, in 1994, that was a major part of why the United States initially made Hawaii into a territory, is because large plantation owners wanted to utilize Hawaii's sugar resources. There's also a huge amount of military personnel on this island. A lot of military bases. Again, historically, this is one of the reasons why the United States saw value in Hawaii, is they wanted to use it as a military base in the middle of the Pacific. There's a huge amount of livestock that are shipped to the U.S. and Canada every year from Hawaii, and of course tourism is a major industry that booms here on the Big Island. Most of that tourism is in Kona, all the way on the left side of the island, but of course it does touch every part of the island as well. And it doesn't take all that long to get all the way around the island, even though this is called the Big Island. This kind of gives you another picture of the different types of workforces that are on the Big Island. Hawaii County is another name for the Big Island, more formal name for the Big Island. As far as religion goes, there are 63% Christians on the Big Island. There historically has been a lot of missionaries that have come to the islands, and so that affects the religion that is present here. 10% identify with other faith backgrounds, non-Christian faith backgrounds, and 26% are unaffiliated. So what does a good community look like, and finally, is the Big Island a good community? So as I mentioned, I really moved to the Big Island in pursuit of a good community. That phrase can be difficult to understand, as it definitely differs from person to person. For me in San Jose, I experienced a very fast-paced culture and was really looking to get a little bit away from that. A less competitive and cutthroat culture. I was looking for people to be able to survive within their means without constantly having to work. San Jose, there's a major wealth gap, which I'll get into in a second. And so that was a couple of the things that really brought me and drew me initially to the Big Island. So with that said, I'm sorry. In the Good Community article, one of the topics that was assessed was safety. I think this is a really important and not talked about enough topic in what makes a community good. If people don't feel safe in their own community, it's really difficult to thrive, because then you're constantly in survival mode. So in a lot of communities in the United States, unfortunately, a lot of people groups are not feeling safe, whether that be minority groups, whether that be from police brutality, whether that be LGBTQ groups not feeling safe. It's really important to talk about people's safety and whether or not they're feeling safe in a community. I think a lot of people on the Big Island, generally speaking, do feel relatively safe. So I really value that in the community here. Like I mentioned before, I think one of the incredible statistics that I found was Hawaii's crime corrections rate. And so we don't see as much racial profiling in the jail systems and things along those lines. So I really value that in the community here. Moving along to wealth inequality, like I mentioned in San Jose, we saw a lot of wealth inequality, and that was a really difficult part for me in understanding the community that was there. In Hawaii, there is a lot less wealth inequality, and so although there's some different metrics to measure that, a lot of the studies that I was reading said that Hawaii was one of the best states as far as wealth equality and wealth mobility, so a person's ability to rise out of poverty. And I really value that in the community that's here. Even though Hawaii's wealth inequality is better than other places, it's actually doubled since becoming a state. So to me, that reality is concerning on what system we are operating out of in the United States, and why when a place becomes a state here has the wealth inequality doubled. However, with that said, it's still one of the best states as far as wealth inequality goes. It's 13.6% of the 1%, or the 1% own 13.6% of the total income that's here. And that is a lot better than other places in the United States. But of course, I think it's important to maintain that, if not decrease that, and give people equal opportunity and access. But the community really does value all careers, career paths, and tries to respect all people. And so I think that's a really beautiful part of the community that's here. So wealth equality kind of brings me into leisure, because when you're able to survive within your means, it gives you room for leisure in your life. This is something that the community in Hawaii really values. They value quality time with loved ones, and quality of life above work and above other things, and really want to enjoy their lives. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. Plato and Aristotle and a lot of the really great philosophers imagined what the perfect society would be like, and emphasized how important having leisure time is in the perfect society. I really agree with that assessment. I think time apart from work teaches us how to think, and think really deeply about the world and its problems, and makes us better people and better social workers. So that was part of me moving here, is I needed to be able to refine myself a little bit in a community where I didn't need to constantly work in order to survive, and be able to focus a little bit more on the things that I really love. And so that's part of what makes the Big Island a really great community for me. And I want to end on the word kinship. Kinship to me really kind of summarizes community. A good community to me is really a place where people are valued just for being people. You don't have to do something to be valued, you just are valued. People need to be loved and known in order to really thrive again. I think the Big Island does a really great job of making people feel loved and known. People stop and have a conversation with you. You put people first, and that is really a core part of the community that I think is really beautiful here. So that's a little bit about the community on the Big Island of Hawaii, and in conclusion, I just want to direct you to my references. Like I said, I really did learn a lot from this project, and I hope that you're able to look up some of these statistics and research I did about the Big Island. Thank you.